I remember the first time I realized my daughter wasn't welcome in family photos. It was her 5th birthday. We were all gathered at my parents' house for a casual family dinner. My daughter wore a bright pink dress, her hair tied with a ribbon I had spent hours fixing. I expected smiles, hugs, and a few snapshots to remember the day. But as soon as I suggested taking a photo together, my mother's face changed. "Oh, maybe not," she said lightly, glancing at my daughter. She whispered something to my father, and suddenly, my daughter was left standing off to the side. I froze. "Why isn't she in the picture?" I asked, trying to hide my shock. My mother replied with a sigh. "She's too much trouble for the family photos." I looked at my daughter. Her little face fell. And in that moment, I realized this was not a one-time thing. As the years went by, it became a pattern. Family gatherings, birthdays, weddings, she was consistently excluded. No explanations. No apologies. I watched her smile fade slightly each time we attempted a family picture. I tried talking to my parents. "Why do you always leave her out?" I asked. They would shift uncomfortably, or claim she just doesn't pose well. But I knew it wasn't that. It was personal. By the time she turned 10, she didn't even bother asking to be in the pictures. She had learned the hard way. If you want to be included, you need permission from someone who didn't see her as equal. I hated the thought. I hated seeing my daughter shrink. Her confidence chipped away slowly by people who were supposed to love her unconditionally. But something inside me promised. One day, she would have her moment. School photo days were different. At school, she was vibrant, outgoing, and her teachers loved her creativity. She built projects, wrote stories, and painted colorful murals on every classroom wall. At home, however, every attempt to celebrate her achievements was minimized. She once brought home an art award, proudly holding the certificate. I asked my parents if they wanted to see it. They waved it off, claiming they were busy. I realized then that family approval didn't come easily for her. It didn't matter how talented she was. Her value, in their eyes, was conditional. And while my heart ached, I refused to let her believe she was unworthy. I whispered to her each night, "You are more than anyone else's opinion. You are brilliant." But I couldn't shield her from everything. The sting of exclusion had already started to leave its mark. High school was a turning point. She had grown into a confident, creative, and outspoken young girl. Her art teachers encouraged her, her classmates admired her, and she began receiving recognition beyond our small circle. But family gatherings were still a minefield. Weddings, birthday parties, even simple dinners. Somehow she was forgotten in group photos. Once, at a family wedding, the photographer called for a group picture. My daughter, dressed elegantly, waited for inclusion. My parents whispered, "She doesn't need to be in the picture," my father muttered. I felt my chest tighten. I had tried so hard to raise her with self-worth. But every exclusion felt like a blow. It was humiliating. For her. And for me. And yet, I noticed something remarkable. Every time she was excluded, she still stood tall. She didn't slouch. She didn't cry. She was quietly preparing for the day she would claim her own spotlight. That day came unexpectedly. She applied for a youth magazine cover. An international youth arts magazine that celebrated talented teens. I was nervous when she told me. "This is a big deal," she said nervously. "I'm not sure I can do it." I reassured her. "You've worked harder than anyone I know. You belong on that cover." She sent in her portfolio paintings, essays, and photographs of her artwork. Weeks passed. Then, one afternoon, the call came. "You've been selected," the editor said. "You're going to be featured on our cover issue." My daughter screamed with joy. Tears ran down her face. And I realized, this was the moment she had been building toward her entire life. Her family's exclusion couldn't stop her brilliance. The magazine photoshoot was a magical experience. Professional lighting, a stylist, a photographer who understood her vision. She was radiant. Confident. Proud. The editor looked at me and said, "She is a star in the making." You must be so proud. I nodded, holding back tears. Weeks later, the issue came out. And there it was, my daughter, smiling on the cover. Her artwork in the background, bold and colorful. The headline read, "Young talent who refuses to be invisible." My daughter held the magazine close. "I finally have proof," she whispered, "that I belong, no matter what anyone else says." For years, she had been told she wasn't worthy of a family photo. Now the entire world could see her brilliance. I sent a copy of the magazine to my parents. I wanted them to see what they had overlooked. My mother opened it quietly. My father glanced briefly. No words. I looked at my daughter. She smiled proudly. "See," she said softly. "They can't erase me anymore." The principal editor of the magazine even wrote a letter. "Young artists like her inspire confidence in everyone around them. She is remarkable." My daughter's joy was uncontainable. It was the first time in her life she had felt fully seen by the world. Her family had tried to silence her, but the world wouldn't allow it. She had created her own space. A space where brilliance was recognized. And she stood firmly in it. I sent a copy of the magazine to my parents. I wanted them to see what they had overlooked. My mother opened it quietly. My father glanced briefly. No words. I looked at my daughter. She smiled proudly. "See," she said softly. "They can't erase me anymore." The principal editor of the magazine even wrote a letter. "Young artists like her inspire confidence in everyone around them. She is remarkable." My daughter's joy was uncontainable. It was the first time in her life she had felt fully seen by the world. Her family had tried to silence her, but the world wouldn't allow it. She had created her own space. A space where brilliance was recognized. And she stood firmly in it. Friends, classmates, and teachers shared the magazine cover online. Likes, comments, and shares poured in. People called her inspiring, talented, and brave. She received messages from young girls all over the country, telling her how her story gave them hope. My parents saw the posts. For the first time, they realized the impact of their actions. Exclusion didn't diminish her. It didn't make her less worthy. Instead, it built resilience, confidence, determination. My daughter understood something critical. True recognition isn't given by everyone. It's earned by proving yourself, even when people doubt you. And on that cover, the girl who was once banned from family photos finally became visible to everyone. Months passed, and the magazine cover became a symbol in our family. Family gatherings were awkward at first. My parents avoided looking at the cover. They didn't apologize immediately. But my daughter didn't need their approval anymore. She had learned to rely on her own worth. Her confidence had grown so much that she started mentoring younger kids in art. She spoke at workshops. She led art classes. And every time she shared her knowledge, she felt proud of her journey. The cover wasn't just a magazine achievement. It was proof that exclusion could never define her. Her creativity, talent, and resilience were stronger than anyone else's disapproval. And slowly, the family began to see what they had missed. One day, my mother spoke to her privately. We should have included you all those years," she said softly. "I didn't realize how much it hurt you." My daughter smiled politely. "Thank you," she said. "But I've learned to shine regardless." Her father nodded quietly, still processing the truth. It was a moment of reconciliation. Not complete forgiveness, but understanding. And for my daughter, it was enough. She didn't need validation from them anymore. Her accomplishments, the magazine cover, the recognition from teachers, peers, and strangers. That was validation enough. She had created her own story. The magazine cover continued to inspire others. Teachers would reference her story in school assemblies. Classmates would ask her how she stayed confident. Young students looked up to her as a role model. Every family photo she had been excluded from no longer mattered. She had redefined what it meant to be seen. Even my parents began to understand. True recognition comes from impact, not permission. By the time she was a teenager, She had built an entire portfolio, a collection of achievements, and a reputation that couldn't be erased. Her talent had forced acknowledgement not just from strangers, but eventually, from those who once excluded her years later. She became the featured artist at a national youth exhibition. Her parents attended this time, watching proudly. No whispers, no exclusions. They couldn't hide the admiration in their eyes. She walked confidently across the stage, receiving her award. From a little girl banned from family photos, to a young woman celebrated on magazine covers and in galleries. Her journey was proof that exclusion doesn't define potential. And that day, I realized. Her light was never dimmed by anyone. She had claimed her space, her recognition, and her story. And no one could take it away. Visibility.